Brother Nouman, how do we know that the character of the Prophet Muhammad was tremendous? Can you give us some examples of that?
Sure, yeah. I think the reference you made from the Quran, إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, that you are absolutely, without a doubt, committed to a high ethical character and a great ethical character, is important to understand. And in addition to illustrating it through an example, what I'd like to illustrate is that that particular statement in the Quran is very early. It's a very early revelation. And what that suggests is that this is not referring to the Prophet's character as a prophet, that it's actually referring to his character as a person being a member of that society for 40 years. It's actually referring to him pre-Islam. And so he's a citizen of this community, and then God refers to his great character in this way. Why? Because you can have great things to say as a preacher, even as a prophet, but a message is it's hollow in and of itself if it's not fortified by credibility. And one of the most sustainable forms of credibility is character. I mean, you can have, for example, nowadays you can have some really eloquent, well-spoken politicians, right? But what's the easiest way to dismantle their entire political campaign? Smear character. Right? If you can find something that's a flaw in their character, some kind of corruption, then it doesn't matter how well they speak and how highly they speak of ideals, none of it actually means anything because there's no character to back up those high claims. So the Prophet's given the highest speech, this high noble message, right? So it wouldn't have any validity if there was no substance and credibility to his character. What's incredible about that is that Mecca was pre-Islam known as a pretty corrupt place. Business practices, social practices, inequality, injustice, a law of the jungle, survival, the strong beat up the weak because they can, right? Might is right. This is the kind of lifestyle that society had. And they had a great economic promise and strength, so they didn't see a need to reform themselves. A lot of times, the kinds of reforms that are associated with justice are the ones that aren't very profitable. So they see no incentive in changing themselves. Now, if one person living in that society that's overwhelmingly corrupt sticks to honesty, it sounds almost like they can't even survive. And yet he not only survives in that society, he sticks out so much from the rest because of his character, not because he's preaching anything. As a matter of fact, he's described as a quiet type originally. But because of the business practices, because of his dealings with people, because of the honesty, he actually got nicknamed in a culture where poetry was used to insult people. This was the culture. In that culture, he got nicknamed the honest one and the trustworthy one, the truthful one and the trustworthy one. And so God refers to that and says, you're questioning the integrity of him as a messenger, and you've never questioned his integrity for 40 years as the most decent among you. You who don't like to praise anyone have praised him. You who are obsessed with praising yourselves have praised him. So the ultimate testimony to your character is the testimony of those who aren't even on your side.
So even those who didn't really want to accept his message, they couldn't deny that he
they
was
couldn't deny his
truthful
character.
and that,
And that's the ultimate testimony to Islam for us. Muslims see that if we're going to deliver the message of Islam, that's a message. But that message also will be hollow until we display character. So these words are actually not just for us to educate non-Muslims about, but it's actually a very powerful lesson for ourselves to really engage in very serious ethical reform. That would be easy for anybody to see, Muslim or not.
Okay, thank you, Brother Nouman, for telling us a little bit more about